After the events of the first Lion King, hyenas take a back seat. We never see any of the creatures show up in The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, including Shenzi, who played a vital role in the 1994 film. She never shows up in The Lion Guard either, despite seeing other hyenas in the show. It's clear they've continued to be banished to the Outlands. However, we've never seen Shenzi appear since the first Lion King. Perhaps she died of old age, but what if she didn't? The Outlands were much roomier than the elephant graveyard, yet still desolate and severely lacking in the food category. True, hyenas could live on little more than bones and marrow, but for too long have the hyenas been starved of anything of substance. Their stomachs growled and their mouths grew dry. The little water the Outlands received was mostly directed to the cubs. Contrary to what you may have been led to believe, hyenas are civilized and intelligent creatures. Like with any society, there were some bad apples, but even those were often misunderstood by the hierarchy of the Pridelands. They were villainized to be the scum of Africa, less of a creature than the regal lions and their rules. The lions whose bellies never went hungry, who claimed to have the best interest of every animal in mind. These notions circulated constantly in the Outlands, festering in the minds of the hyenas. Shenzi, the cunning leader of the hyenas, had just about had enough of the discrimination. She'd lived in the shadow of her ancestors who had overhunted the Pridelands, thus leading to the banishment of the hyenas from the Pridelands forever. Although Shenzi and her clan were not like the generation that came before, Mufasa still despised them. So what was the point of trying to appease this monarchy if they would only ever see them as criminals? They all needed to eat, and the carcasses of the elephant graveyard had run out all too quickly. So Shenzi had gathered some of the hyenas to secretly hunt in the Pridelands. That had ended when a mole had spotted them and reported it to Mufasa, who promptly chased them out. During the reign of Scar, they had finally been able to eat, but a drought had caused the population of prey to dwindle, which the lions made sure to blame on the hyenas. Scar was cruel, and sure, he used them as a pawn in overthrowing the throne, but he had allowed these outcasts to be welcomed back in, something the supposed benevolent Mufasa had never done. There was hope for them with Simba, the current king, but perhaps the tumble they had when he was a cub had soured him, because once he had taken the throne, he banished them to the Outlands. With the new generation of hyenas coming up, they had to eat. One of these new cubs, Janja, was a promising new potential leader. Shenzi couldn't allow them to starve. She could try to snatch an unsuspecting gazelle or zebra on the outskirts of the Pridelands and hope she wouldn't be noticed, but that wouldn't last long with the growing population of the hyenas. She needed a lot more than one meager zebra. She needed a feast, something that could last them a while. So she gathered her best hunters and prepared a plan. They would hunt that evening, when the lions and their informants were heading to bed. It would be a quick and violent hunt. Go in, hunt all they could carry, and head back. The next day, whatever the consequences would be, Shenzi would take responsibility. She was getting up there in years, and she knew she wouldn't have many more hunts left in her. Taking the brunt of the repercussions would be her last service to the hyenas. This would be one last hunt. That evening, the grass in the Pridelands was stained red with blood. It was a wonderful, horrible chase. Dozens of prey fell left and right. The hyenas were vicious hunters. Careful to not be too long, Shenzi called them off once they killed what they needed. It was a satisfying night for the hyenas. Finally, they were all able to fill themselves with the delicious meat of their hunt. Shenzi left all of it for the others, knowing this was probably her last night. She was satisfied with what she had accomplished and felt no regret in her actions. She had done what had needed to be done for the survival of her clan. Simba was used to nightmares and waking up feeling uneasy. His father's death would replay to no end, haunting him through the night and early morning. Fear came from that as well. Could he live up to Mufasa's legacy? He had already struggled to keep the Pridelands from falling apart within the several weeks since he had taken the throne. The drought had caused significant damage to the ecosystem and hindered the growth of the prey population, though he mostly blamed the lack of food for the lions and the other predators on the hyenas and Scar. From what Simba had been taught by Mufasa, every creature had a place in the great circle of life, but he couldn't help but feel the hyenas were the one exception. Their greediness during Scar's reign had caused unfathomable damage, and their mere association with his father's murderer was enough to make his blood boil. Just as the sun had started to rise, Zazu came flying in, fighting to keep himself upright. He looked distressed. He was saying something about hyenas and half the Pridelands being dead, though Simba couldn't tell because his words were so jumbled. No matter, hyenas was all he needed to hear. Nala suggested she and some of the other lionesses go with him to confront Shenzi, but Simba disregarded that comment and raced out of Pride Rock towards the Outlands. Some of the hyenas had fallen asleep, but not Shenzi. She knew if she stayed behind with the others, they would all be at risk. So in the middle of that night, she traveled to the edge of the Outlands. There, she awaited her fate. And sure enough, a roar from the Pridelands came. Shenzi could see a silhouette of a large, muscular lion approaching at a dizzying speed. Definitely Simba. He stopped a few feet before Shenzi and growled at her. She expected him to be more furious, but considering the time of day, she doubted he actually saw the damage the hyenas had caused. That and the fact that he probably wasn't expecting to see the hyena all by herself. But he quickly composed himself and went at her, verbally attacking her and getting in her face, each word getting more and more heated. She could see the tired, exhausted, and hurt look in his eyes, and she knew this wasn't just about the hunt. He wasn't finished with his vengeance for his father, and this was it for her. Simba's head was flooded with anger. The murder of his uncle hadn't satisfied the hole his father's death left in him. He had wanted to punish the hyenas for their allegiance to the scarred tyrant, but Nala had encouraged him to only banish them. He was fatigued, he was wary, and most of all, he was angry. And here was Shenzi, a face he associated with Mufasa's death. All of those feelings that he felt at night with nightmares came flooding back to him 100 times over. He couldn't stand it anymore. He lashed out and sunk his teeth into her neck. Her ragged body flung limp as he threw her back and forth like a chew toy. All his fury, his hurt, his emptiness, he let out in a vicious attack on the helpless hyena. There he stood with the dead hyena in his mouth, the last living memory of his father's murder. Or so he thought. Standing there, Simba felt more empty. Even though he could justify the punishment on the hyenas, the hole that was inside his soul grew larger, and Simba was left there feeling more lost than ever.